Chapter 1. Mr. Nightingale, the lovely young women I invited are waiting for you to make your appearance. And it would be nice if you socialized a bit. After all, I did plan this party in your honor. Jovani glanced around. He hadn't noticed or heard the sound of the elevator. He didn't notice the woman coming from a bedroom to the left of Gabriella's mother, Mrs. Kellerman. The woman's voice low yet powerful, altering the hold he had on Hannah. The woman with the appearance of beauty, young but wearing too much makeup. At a closer glance, she appeared to be older than she looked. Much older than the youthful body in the short black cold-shoulder dress. Her face youthful like a woman in her 20s. If Jovani hadn't lived so long, he would have thought of her as 21 or 22. Her skin luminous and pale. Her hair dyed a strange color red. Her face round and her eyes a strong green. The color you see in a cat. She smiled at Jovani and tilted her head. Then she looked at Mrs. Kellerman, suspended in time, which brought on a wide smile. You don't know me, Jovani, but I know you. I've been following you for a very long time, and I wondered when you would make your appearance, and I could get a glimpse of you. I will make my appearance shortly. I didn't get your name, Jovani said to her as Justin peered in her direction. My name is Taisia. If you don't mind, we have to get back to our guest. I hope you have no objections if I take Mrs. Kellerman with me. Jovani nodded his head, and Taisia glided over to Mrs. Kellerman and reached for her hand and led her to the elevator. Taisia turned and said, "Don't forget, I'll be expecting you." Her tone cheerful but with mild impatience when she gave him a quick smile. Jovani hurriedly released one hand from Hannah's heart and the other from Justin's throat. Hannah's eyes opened and stared blankly at Jovani. She remembered walking into the hall, but not anything after that, except she felt a desire to kiss him. Turning gazing at Justin, she blinked twice in wonder and narrowed her eyes. Why was he there with her and Jovani? She questioned, unable to make sense of her surroundings. Jovani took a long breath and raised his head, but never taking his eyes from Justin. Now he knew where his challenge would come from. He thought he knew all his enemies, but he had just begun to accumulate them. When Jovani released Hannah, she felt as if she had awakened from a dream she fought not to leave, but the dream was to become more real for her. But with Jovani, he felt he had lost her forever. In Hannah's dream, the two men were arguing over who she will choose as her husband. Hannah shook her head to see Jovani before her, and she looked down, and Justin stood clutching her hand. She looked up at Justin, and he had a serious, cold stare. His mouth clenched as he gritted his teeth. That deadly stare meant for Jovani. Let's get out of here, Hannah. Realizing Hannah had seen something in his face, he smiled. You look hungry. I think I know this place where we can get some pancakes. Didn't you say you loved pancakes? His tone easy. I don't remember. I could have. She moved with a slowness as if she had just awakened from a long sleep. She twisted around to look at Jovani, who stood gazing at her, and then remembering that he had something that couldn't wait. When she turned away, he disappeared. When he appeared again, he was standing in the back of the large room, watching at the guest measuring them. Then his eyes focused on a young man talking to a beautiful young woman in her late teens. She was 19, and he could hear her slur her speech as the young man handed her a glass and passed his hand over it, dropping something into it. Jovani took a step, and something or someone touched his arm. When he glanced down and away from the couple, his gaze rose to see Taisia. You can't save them all, you know. She's looking for a way out. And he's there to solve her problems, Taisia said to Jovani. Who are you? Jovani said, never letting the young woman leave his gaze. Taisia. Don't you remember? I don't mean that. I know your name. Should I have said, what are you? In all your travels, Jovani, don't tell me you've never met my kind. Because I have indeed met your kind, Taisia said, accentuating her words. I wasn't sure what kind of witch you are. Don't tell me, let me guess. You're not a good witch and not a bad witch, but you're somewhere in between. It appears you have a limited amount of powers. Did you burn them out with your quest to remain young forever? You're talking about an older, more seasoned witch. I'm nothing like that. I'm more like you. I'm still very young, and every day my powers grow stronger. To stay that young, you will need to sustain your powers. I see now. And he glanced over where the young couple once stood. His eyes tossed back to Tycia. Where have your henchmen gone with her? Jovani made a move in the direction of where he saw them standing. You're too late, she said, touching his cold hand with a scorching hand. You can't stop it now. Even if you want to make her one of your concubines, she will be of no use to you. I'm not looking for a concubine. Someone to serve me sexually is but a memory. Jovani turned back to face Tycia, and she said to him, I know what you're looking for. A human to marry. He raised an eyebrow at her. Why have you inserted yourself into my life? Jovani questioned with a vexing tone. The question is, why are you in New York? This is my territory. We can't have a vampire and a witch such as myself working in the same time and the same place. It's not good. You have already called unneeded attention to us. I'm afraid you're wrong. We are at cross purposes. I don't hunt innocent young women and men to gather as followers. I hunt the ones who prey on innocent humans. And you do not question me unless you are prepared to die, Jovani said with undisputable aggression. Stepping back from Jovani, Tycia said, I wasn't aware that the son of the most vicious vampire of all times would find himself being the savior of mankind. Don't fool yourself, you're using that excuse to think that you're not what you are. You now want to have children. Isn't that special, she said with a closed smile. What kind of children will you bring into this world? Let the werewolf have her. Jovani's face responded with a raised eyebrow and a furrowed brow. His eyes deepened at the thought of letting anyone have Hannah. She was all he had hoped for in his life and all he would want. How could he leave her to a dog? You think I don't know everything that goes on in Manhattan? I was born in this place 100 years ago when they were burning women on stakes for being a witch. I was one of the lucky ones. And I was indeed a witch. And all the unsuspecting women who thought they were witches weren't really. They believed me when I said they were and began making potions like I taught them. Potions for me. They didn't know what were contained in those potions. The skin and blood of their little children. She stared down Jovani. It took all the patience of over 100 years of living to keep him from destroying her that night, and he will wish he had. But he tried to keep to that hunter's code, no women or children. I heard the story. You were the one responsible for that carnage. Everyone was so focused on women being witches that they forgot about all the young children who disappeared at your hands, which gave you this flawless skin that keeps you young. He trailed his finger down her face, past her eyes, past her cheek, and past her mouth, as he smiled, looking into her terror-stricken eyes, stopping at her throat. He felt her body tremble. He felt her breathing intensify. He smelled the fear from her breath. I won't stand around and allow you to kill all those women for the sake of a few years on your life, and I won't allow you to let those henchmen of yours kill any more women. How are you going to stop me? I think you have your hands full with that female and that werewolf, Tycia said, gathering her courage, after looking around at everyone who focused their eyes on the two of them, thinking that she had gained this handsome rich man's attention. She had, but not the way they thought. Oh, there you two are, Mrs. Kellerman said with a bright smile. Did you see my daughter and her friend? I do hope you like them. They are pretty girls and available. If you're looking for a wife, not to say you are, but if you're looking, please keep Gabriella and her friend in mind. Jovani smiled. I will, but now I have to leave. Please accept my apologies. There are things that I have to take care of, Jovani said, glancing at Tycia. He glided away to the entrance. He heard Mrs. Kellerman say to Tycia, Thank you for getting him to accept my invitation. I'm in your debt. Jovani watched Tycia take Mrs. Kellerman's hand, and lead her in the middle of the room and to her husband. Then Taisia disappeared in the crowd of people drinking and chattering about how wonderful it would be if Mr. Nightingale would date one of their daughters. When Justin and Hannah were walking down a stairs to the outside of the mansion, Jovani was calling for his car, and Gabriella was meeting Taisia for the first time.